First pitfall number one that I found is romanticizing the business idea. So you think that when you start a business, you need to go to the bank and borrow a whole bunch of money. That's the first step. And that's a lie. You do not have to do that. In most states, you can go ahead and incorporate as a professional association or PLLC and basically get started, get your malpractice before you see a single soul, and then just do it, see what happens. I think mistake number two is not thinking about the end goal. Most of us, we want to make money because we're afraid of being broke. Totally get it. But you got to kind of figure out where you're going with this. As one business coach said, you either start a business to sell it, merge it, ideally not close it. You want to be able to make money.
Welcome to How I Doctor, where we're bringing joy back to medicine. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Brian Dixon, a psychiatrist, entrepreneur, and outspoken advocate for salary transparency. Brian not only runs his own practice, but also helps other psychiatrists and increasingly other physicians understand the real-world trade-offs between career paths, compensation, and autonomy. He's built companies such as Simply Psych and Mindful to support physicians and patients, and he's not afraid to share his own numbers, fees, and mistakes along the way. I am so excited to talk to Brian today because I think his radical transparency and no-nonsense approach are rare in medicine. He's here to show us how to think more clearly about the jobs we take, the contracts we sign, and the practices we build so that money, meaning, career satisfaction are all on the table. Dr. Brian Dixon, welcome to How I Doctor.
Thank you, Graham. It is a pleasure to be here, and that introduction is insane, but thank you.
Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to our first ever How I Doctor podcast sponsor, Abridge. Abridge is the leading AI platform that drafts structured, clinically useful notes at the point of conversation. Clinicians remain in full control because they review and finalize every note. With Abridge, many clinicians report reclaiming time and reducing their documentation burden, myself included. I've been using Abridge in my role as a practicing emergency physician in San Francisco, and clinicians who use it report up to an 86% reduction in effort writing notes, a 78% reduction in cognitive load, and 70% decrease in after-hours documentation. The company was also founded by a physician and is completely dedicated to empowering clinicians, which is what makes them the perfect first sponsor for How I Doctor. If you aren't yet using Abridge, inquire with your IT department today or reach out at abridge.com/contact. Thank you, and now let's get to today's episode. Brian, let's jump right in. You've been pretty open and honest about your salary and fees. That is so extremely rare. How has that transparency changed your own practice and your relationships with colleagues?
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I got during fellowship was from a pediatrician. The attending said, Brian, beware, because if you get a job paying you $300,000, they're going to expect $300,000 worth of work out of you. And just that one line made me go, this is interesting, because I don't know what $300,000 worth of work is worth or what it looks like, but let me pay attention. And as a result, when I got out and I got my first employed job, I was underpaid by quite a bit for the work I was doing. I learned that the hard way when I compared salaries with one of my colleagues, and she was making 20 grand more than I was for the exact same job. And then when I started my private practice, I learned, hey, wait a minute, there's a method to the madness, and now I get to share it with all of y'all.
Brian, what are some of the most common misconceptions physicians have about salaries and pay?
The number that you see is not the true number of how business finance works in the healthcare space. So, for example, when I'm talking to residents, if they say, hey, I'm going to pay you $250,000 in salary, and then you have these added benefits, health insurance, other things that they use to kind of dangle in front of you, that could be another, 20, 30, 40, 50,000. Well, add that all together, you get, $300,000. Well, a business doesn't exist just to break even. They need to make a profit. So if they're giving you $300,000, they need you to generate $600,000, which means you're going to be working every weekend, charting. People are going to be breathing down your neck to code correctly and upcode and do all sorts of wacky stuff. So that is the biggest misconception I see is doctors go, well, I'm just worth it. Nah, bruh, nope, that is not how this works.
Brian, it's funny. I've talked with several people that I think physicians would probably be shocked, maybe would riot, quit, be outraged if they saw how much they were getting paid relative to how much maybe is being billed under their NPI, under their name. We often hear about health systems or hospitals or employers trying to frame physicians as like a loss leader, that we are an expense, but we all know very clearly that the hospitals wouldn't employ us out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yep, 100%. And when it comes to psychiatrists, so I'm a psychiatrist, I love my job, best specialty ever. You'll notice that quite a few major health systems don't have a robust psychiatry component, if at all. And why is that? Well, because in psychiatry, we're not procedure heavy. We don't have a lot of procedures, so we can't really bill insurance. So they can't really make any money off of us. Ergo, they just don't have us at all. On the flip side, because ER and surgery and subspecialties are very procedural driven, absolutely, they want to get you in, pay you the least amount possible, bill as high as possible, and do that whole churn thing. So yeah, it's this weird, wacky system that we are now stuck in.
Brian, what's the advice that you'll give to residents and fellows? What are you specifically recommending they do when they're looking for maybe their first job?
So my first piece of advice is do what you're good at. Don't do what you're not good at. There are literally doctors right now who get through residency and they're like, you know what? I don't really like treating patients. Or they go, I really don't like outpatient or inpatient or whatever. But they force themselves into a role to pay the bills or because they're afraid of being broke. And I tell folks all the time, you have to be true to yourself first because number one, your patient safety is paramount. You want to make sure that you're in the moment with that person, but you also don't want to be hurting yourself. You're literally creating your own burnout because you're not being true to yourself. So yeah, first thing, to thine own self be true. And then secondly, know that no contract is ever written in your favor. So if you're going to sign on with somebody, there's always a win that the company is getting over you, whether that's a physician or a physician-owned company or not. Those two big pieces of advice, most people's eyes fall out of their heads and go, oh my God, really? And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works.
Brian, maybe I can consult you as a psychiatrist here. What is the physician psyche that I think maybe makes us more prone to, I don't know, being taken advantage of? Or do you have a sense of either like the personality or the psyche or the culture that makes us maybe accept less than we are worth?
Yeah, so it's kind of multifactorial. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's one thing. So I've had the pleasure of being on admissions committees at a couple different schools, and everybody that I interview all says the same thing. I think the altruism is there, the heart is there. First year, same thing. We're all on the same playing field. We're all doing our preclinical work. There's something that happens at the end of that, I won't call it abuse, but that hazing ritual that we do that first and second year. So you'll start to see the striation. Some folks start going towards the subspecialty, procedure-heavy places. Others do the kind of, oh, I want to stay altruistic. And that's where I think the demarcation happens. The psychiatry doctor lounge, I'm being facetious. The psychiatry doctor lounge is really crappy. The ortho doctor lounge is full of awesomeness, right? So there are those external factors that kind of reinforce the strata, the caste system, and then that just makes it all worse.
Yeah, it feels like the Hippocratic Oath, I think, certainly tells us that our patients are supposed to come before us and their needs are more important than ours. But my theory is that it kind of we've taken that to the extreme, or maybe we've been told that the Hippocratic Oath is to the nth degree, that our needs aren't allowed to matter at all. That, in the same way that we're kind of ultimately responsible at the end of the day for the patient, it often feels like that can be abused.
Oh, 100%. The line that I like to use, don't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And as a clinician, you do that. As an entrepreneur, you do that. As a clinician entrepreneur, it's exponential. And so as a result, either docs don't want to go into business or business people burn themselves out, docs burn themselves out. And then for us poor schmucks who try to do both, it is a uphill battle.
Brian, you have a guide and presentations that you do for For residents, Simply Psych's Guide to Your Next Job. Can you just maybe walk me through the three acts that you use when you talk with residents?
In any type of job, there's only a couple ways that you can go about it. You can either own the business, you can be employed by the business, or you can kind of do this weird hybrid thing like buy a franchise or buy into a practice. But that's basically it. So either you're an employee, you work for someone else, you own it, or there's some kind of hybrid. And then you have to look at how much you want to risk. So some folks are super risky. Yeah, I'm willing to put forth $100,000 and see if this works. Other folks are not risky at all. They go, I want a stable, steady job. So that risk versus autonomy is on the other axis. So you get to decide where you want to be, how much risk, and then if you want to be in charge of it, that's the autonomy piece. If you want to be in charge or if you want to be employed. And then you have to ask yourself the questions, what are you good at? What are you not good at? Do you want to work full-time or part-time? So that's the other thing is lots of folks beat themselves up about, hey, if I pick one thing, I have to do it all the time. And Graham, I'm here to tell you, in this age, you can do fractional work at all different levels. So full-time, part-time, that old framework no longer exists. And then the last piece is if you do decide to do something on your own, if you want to take the highest risk and be in charge of your entire career, you need to structure that career. You need to structure that business in such a way that you can scale it. Because if you can't scale it, it's like an albatross around your neck. You will drown. And I don't want doctors to drown. I want them to feel like they know how to scale their practice. And that's where my business coaching and my zest is.
Brian, tell me, why do they need to scale it if somebody wants to go off on their own?
Yeah. So the most important part of scaling is so that you don't always have to be ever present is how I phrase it. So as it stands right now, once you start a business, you're on 24/7, 365. As a clinician entrepreneur, not only are you on 24/7, 365, you're thinking about your patients all the time, and that's just going to lead to even more burnout. So what I encourage people to do is scale your practice, meaning put in infrastructure and other people who can do things for you without you having to do them. That could be administrative or it could be clinical. Ideally, you do both. That way, that gets you out of full-time, 40-hour a week, 60-hour a week, covering everything.
It kind of reminds me of what you said earlier, like know what you like and know what you're good at. And so, I mean, I don't think a physician's going to say they're good at answering the phones, but like, if you don't mind if you like numbers and maybe you're good at the business side of things and managing QuickBooks and Excel and seeing what your numbers are looking like, that's fine. But it's probably also okay if you don't like that, well, hire somebody to do that for you so that you can decompress and take some stuff off your plate.
Best example is the ACLS infrastructure. So they teach us that you stand in your role, head of bed, airway, chest compressions, and then you do that role. You block everything else out and you just do that role. Well, it's the same thing when scaling a business. Clinician entrepreneurs who try to sit in all the seats, who try to do everything at one time, you will fail. Just like running a code. If you were head of bed, plus doing airway, plus doing compressions, plus pushing meds, the person's going to die almost 100% of the time. I mean, you know this better than I do because I haven't touched a patient in like 20 years.
ER doctor about ACLS here, I know.
Yeah, but it's that same mantra, that same flow, and you just adapt it to the business world.
Hey, today's episode is brought to you by Abridge. We all feel the weight of clinical documentation that follows us home and chips away at our personal time. With Abridge, clinicians can change that. Abridge drafts a structured, clinically useful note at the point of conversation, all seamlessly integrated into Epic and customizable to your specialty while you review and finalize every word. Clinicians have reported significantly less after-hours charting, improved satisfaction, and dramatically lower burnout. Let technology support your day instead of interrupting it. Visit abridge.com to learn how you can focus more on patient care and less on paperwork. Let's put the care back in clinical care. As a kind of social policy guy and a systems thinker. 80% of physicians are now employed by someone else, usually a health system, but not always. And it does feel like part of the shift is that physician independent reimbursement has also not kept up. I think it's like down 26% over the past 20 years. And so in some ways, it almost feels like you have to be crazy to decide to want to take on that risk as well. Maybe as physician reimbursement has gone down, it's like driven a lot of people way toward the autonomy side of the spectrum because the risk is so great of failure because any business would be likely to fail if pay has gone down and costs have gone up.
It's huge now. I feel so sad for many employed physicians because of the way that the contracts are written with non-competes and all the other stuff. So many docs just get fired overnight. It's not even funny. We're just not going to renew your contract, or you have your 30, 60, 90 days to get out. And as a result, yeah, it is super risky to be employed. I think the middle ground is that more doctors need to own more systems, not necessarily hospitals. That's not what I'm saying. It's more of we own the staffing agencies. But of course, that's really hard because a lot of the contracts right now are kind of set in stone, and nobody wants to take the risk of being that odd person to start something new, to get a new contract, to do all the things. So yeah, being an employed doc, either in a health system, sometimes being an employed doc in a university system, it can all be so tenuous and more risky than it used to be. It used to be, yeah, you would just sign up and you could retire from whatever system you're in. But with the way things are going, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, not to specifically call a group out, but I know a bunch of colleagues who work at what used to be Partners Healthcare in Harvard and now I think it's now MGB, Mass General Brigham is the new organization. And, they underwent a merging. And, I've certainly heard a lot of physicians are not particularly happy with even, like the premier health system in the world, the Harvard Mass General Brigham system, that people are now employees and pretty unhappy with how things are turning out there.
And it will only get worse. Now, with that said, I'm not saying that it's all sunshine and lollipops in the DPC, the direct pay world either. I'm learning the hard way that it takes a lot of effort. So I own my practice, and there are now 6 physicians total, including myself. And what I have to do is I have to eat a lot of crow, do a lot of team building. I have to put my foot down sometimes. I have to give in other places. And it's a lot easier in my practice because I go out of my way to make sure that everything is incredibly transparent. Like everybody sees what everybody else makes because it's all in the system, and everybody's productivity based. And so there's no way to game the system, which is what often happens in the insurance-based system. Oh, I coded this way, and oh, I'm getting this perk over here, or because I'm in a service line that generates more procedures, I get more of X, Y, and Z. So I think the old system is going to eat itself up because, again, that's just what it's going to do. I think we will go to a more physician-owned, physician collaborative model, and we will see more direct pay type services.
That's fascinating that pay is transparent in your practice. I tend to think that transparency is good for employees and bad for employers. So you maybe see that a little bit differently if you're deciding to do it that way. What made you decide to do it that way, and what are the things that you've seen as maybe benefits from encouraging transparency?
Yeah, so this is where I totally say Graham is sort of a lie. So let me walk you through that. So I own 2 companies. One company is a direct services company, right? So that's my company with the doctors in it. That one is the one that has full pay transparency because it is a percentage base. They can see what they bring in, and you can log through the system and see what other doctors are doing, like what patients they're seeing. And so you can clearly see, oh my gosh, so-and-so is making X number of dollars. Well, but the thing is, they're working for it because they're earning it. In the other company, that one is not transparent. We do a range. So depending on the role, we offer a range of salary for that particular thing. So people kind of know where the range is, but they don't know the exact number. And I think that's because if you can't find a way to generate more money, keeping it kind of close to the vest, I think, is actually more helpful and less destructive. So, yeah, so that's kind of how I'm threading the needle between the two companies.
Yeah.
So far, it seems to be working.
When you say productivity based, that's not RVUs then, it sounds like. This is
No,
just I'm seeing this many patients and the patients pay me this much money and then I get X% split of that volume.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 30, 40, 50, 60, depending on the arrangement that I have with that individual doctor. Now, the doctors, I guess, could talk to each other about what their split is, and that's up to them. I don't care about that part. But yes, I'd standardized it all, and then I had to have a come to Jesus meeting with myself because one of the first times when I tried to do this model, I was being super generous. I was like, oh my gosh, I got this doctor to work for me. I'm going to do a 75-25 split because that's what they say on Facebook and that's what they're saying online. And Graham, when I say that was the stupidest shit, I didn't take into account taxes and overhead and all these things. So the person that was on the 75-25 split, I was literally paying them to work for me. And I was like, what is this? So, yeah. So when I bring on physicians, I make sure to very, very clearly show them, all right, just assume that 20 to 30% is overhead and marketing and everything else. That at most will leave 70%. I'm not going to work for free. So let's just say I take a 10% profit. So then that leaves 60%. So at most, you're going to get 60%. There's no way around it. If you don't like it, start your own practice and I'll help you run it. Right. So I think that has resonated with everybody.
To me, that feels pretty fair. I mean, I think that's the main thing that physicians want is feel a sense of fairness that they're not getting kind of taken advantage of by the patients or you or their colleagues or anybody else, really.
Yeah, and it increases that empowerment, that autonomy, and it's really funny because my docs are technically employees. They are not contractors. That's another thing that the industry does really badly is they make doctors contractors, but then they treat them like employees. Not the corporate practice of medicine thing. It's other doctors doing it to other doctors. I'm like, y'all, that's dangerous, but whatever. But yeah, so my employees, they seem to be happy. They, I mean, I make myself available. I give them all the perks that I can. So I don't. I'm not able to offer insurance in the traditional sense. So I just make sure to pay them extremely well. And yeah, they find ways to manage their healthcare with their families and they get paid every 2 weeks and then we move on.
Brian, when you said, you tell people, okay, if you think this is so easy, start your own practice and I'll help you run it. Like, do you encourage that? Is that how people who maybe are unhappy with their current model, should they just go out there and put their shingle up?
When I hear people complain, and this goes for employed docs or entrepreneurial docs, when I hear them go, "Ugh, it's so much better on the other side, the grass is greener on the other side," I remind them, no, the grass is greener where you water it. You're going to have to work no matter where you go. But if you're big and bad and think you can do what I do, then by all means, go for it. And at the end of the day, I keep pictures on my phone because some days I come out of the office and there is literally not a single car anywhere in the parking lot. Not up the street. Everybody's gone. And I take a picture of that and I remind myself, this is the cost of being the boss. And I'm going to pay myself and pay myself well because everybody else went home. When it ices over, I'm the one up putting ice on the sidewalk, correct? If the toilet overflows, I'm the one dealing with it. When we have people reach out to us and leave us bad Google reviews, I'm the one that has to deal with it, right? So if people want that responsibility, I will absolutely coach them. I'd charge an hourly rate. I'll tell you whatever you need to know. But most people aren't willing to put in that level of effort. And so as a result, I coach them, well, maybe it's best to stay where you are and find other ways of getting job satisfaction or life enjoyment.
What advice would you give physicians who feel trapped? Maybe they're in a job path that they don't love, but they're really worried about the financial risks of taking that big leap, honestly.
The first piece of advice is you're a terrible therapist for yourself. You're a terrible business coach for yourself. You're a terrible doctor for yourself, right? So if you're feeling any kind of way, overwhelmed, unfulfilled, go talk to somebody. And I don't mean self-help books.
Oh, you're any psychiatrist will say that.
Yeah,
Come on.
exactly. Ding, 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 ding. So yeah, that's to me that is a key because the theory is that you're too close to yourself to be objective. And so yes, if you're feeling burned out, it may be that the system is shitty, but there's also your role in your own pathology that you have got to tackle. And if you don't tackle it, it's just going to follow you everywhere. That's what happened to me. Like when I left residency, I got my first job at a FQHC and burned out. I was working 6 days a week charting. I love my patients, but I was like, this is awful. I moved to a multi-specialty group, did that after 2 years, burned out of that. And I was like, what is up? And so I went and saw a therapist and he was basically like, Brian, what is the common denominator between these things? And I'm like, oh shit, it's me. And he's like, yeah, so let's explore what it is that you may
My
be
sweet
doing
summer
to contribute.
child.
Yeah, correct. And so
Yeah.
once I figured it out, I was like, holy shit, I need to start my own practice, build my own workflows and operations, standard operating procedures. When I'm in control of it, then I feel great. And so that's what I did. And when I messed that all up because I didn't know how to do business, I went and got a business coach. And now I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
I really like that advice of talk to somebody, whether it's in a therapeutic relationship or a professional networking sense or just a friend or a colleague that you can confide in. Because I do think, especially since COVID, we're all just kind of doing our own thing. Doors are closed. People are trying to move as fast as possible. And I think it really has gotten a lot more lonely and isolating to be an attending these days.
I agree with you. When I first started my private practice, I got in a lunch group with 3 other psychiatry owners and did that for 2, 3 years, and it was awesome. When I was working to scale my practice, because that's really lonely, I got a business coach through entrepreneurs organizations. And I did that, and that gave me access to folks who knew how to scale, and I felt right at home. And so, yes, I agree with you. Whether you're a clinical attending, whether you're doing entrepreneurship and scaling, the key is find like-minded people so you don't feel so alone. And they can hold you accountable because they'll call you on your shit quick, fast, and in a hurry. So
I think the concept of saying, I don't know, is really scary to a lot of people. I say it all the time because I'm like, I'm an ear doctor. I don't know why you have XYZ. But I liked your idea of like, oh, I hired a business coach. Like you asked for help, which is, I think another thing that physicians probably could get better at. And just, being okay with having other experts in the room who might be able to help you get better at something else besides, liver transplant.
yeah, I have not met Gino Wickman yet, the guy who wrote Traction. I know he's on LinkedIn. He actually responded to one of my messages. I was like, oh my God, Gino, thanks. You changed my life. But yes, he uses the seat model, right? Get the right butt in the right seats. So the key is make sure you define the seats correctly, and then you identify and onboard the right butts for those seats. And that is so true because you can't see what you can't see, right? We say that in medicine all the time, and there are definitely blind spots in how you operate. There are blind spots in how you count for money. There's blind spots in how you do your marketing. And if you don't go and find somebody who's an expert in one of those subgenres, you're going to miss something.
Yeah, and I think you have to be okay with acknowledging that you're not the world's expert at marketing. I mean, and that's okay. The society, everybody wants you to be a really good psychiatrist, a really good transplant surgeon. Nobody wants you to be a transplant surgeon who's also the world's best marketer. That's not a good use of your time, your skill set. You didn't go to school for that. You went to school for this other thing, which is also really important.
Yeah, I think some of that is beat into us in residency because the goal of residency is to get as much billable work out of the lowest paid people possible, right? And so when we're in residency, it's, hey, residents, interns up through fellows, we want you to do everything. I mean, I remember back in the day, I was faxing people and rolling people out to their cars and doing all the things because that's what you were supposed to do in residency. Secretly now realizing, holy moly, they got a lot of free work out of me, right? And so we then take that responsibility with us through the rest of our career. And as a result, we tend to overdo things. Well, I need to be the one to go to the post office and mail these letters. I need to be the one to sit and approve all this stuff. I need to, in addition to seeing patients and trying to have, any semblance of a life outside of the office.
Brian, let me ask you a little bit more about the business of private practice. There's no such thing as easy money. What are the biggest pitfalls new private practice owners maybe run into?
Yeah. First pitfall number one that I found is romanticizing the business idea. So you think that when you start a business, you need to go to the bank and borrow a whole bunch of money. That's the first step. And that's a lie. You do not have to do that. In most states, you can go ahead and incorporate as a professional association or a PLLC and basically get started, get your malpractice before you see a single soul, and then just do it, see what happens. And there's enough EMRs and ways to take people's money to make that really, really easy. So that's mistake number one, is you don't have to do it the traditional way. I think mistake number two is not thinking about the end goal. Most of us, we want to make money because we're afraid of being broke. Totally get it. But you got to kind of figure out where you're going with this. As one business coach said, you either start a business to sell it, merge it, ideally not close it, right? You want it to be fiscally solvent. You want to be able to make money. And so just kind of keeping that stuff in mind, for me personally.
Does that mean having your 5-year vision of, okay, I'm starting today, but in 5 years, I want X, and then trying to work back from that? How do I get there?
I think that's exactly what you do. So when I started my practice, I said, I want to have a renewable sense of income and take care of my people for the rest of my career, but I don't want to do it more than a day or two a week. Now, in order to make that happen, I have to spend 5 to 10 years getting all of the flywheel effect, all the infrastructure in place, so that over the course of time, I don't have to work as hard. And the people that I'm working with, I can continue, I'll continue to get new people, but I don't want to do it more than 1 or 2 days a week. Right now, I've gotten it down from like 5 to 6 days a week to about 3 days a week. And I'm in year number whatever this is, 11 or 12. So
so you're making it look easy, but people aren't seeing the 5 or 10 or 11 years that you've put in to get it down to this point. I heard a really interesting quote recently. I can't remember if it was in Germany or Australia, but they said, it's expected or it's mandatory that you take your vacation time in probably Germany, and 3 to 4 weeks of vacation. And in fact, it's your fault if the business falters because you're out, because that is a sign that you haven't planned well enough to be able to keep it running without you there. So obviously, I love that. I love that analogy. If you've got, a business that's been around 5 years, you should have baked into part of your plan, hey, I need to have some redundancy, some ability that other people can other people has a key, they can turn the lights on, they can turn on the computer, so that when I get to take a vacation, the thing doesn't just crumble down in front of me.
100%. And that's the beauty of a business coach.
Yeah. So what are the things that you've learned from your business coach that maybe seem intuitive now, but at the time were like eye-openers?
One of my favorites is your podcast listeners are about to get a piece of advice that cost me, I don't know, 50 grand. And it's one line. And he said, make it easy for people to give you money. Make it easy for people to give you money. And it's so funny because a lot of psychiatrists, a lot of DPC docs, other doctors who are going out there, they don't put their prices online. They don't have an easy pay portal. When you get in to see them, you either don't have the terminal or you don't have an easy way for your docs to charge credit cards, right? And there are systems that make all that stuff really easy, and your patients appreciate it because they don't want to have to part with all of their hard-earned money. So make it easy to not be painful, right? As soon as he said that during one of our big coaching sessions, I was like, oh my God, that makes it very straightforward. People do not have to guess who I am, what I'm worth, what I do, what the fees are. It's just all online. You can see it. We send it to you. You sign consent that you understand it. Let's just move on.
It is getting way easier nowadays for somebody to start their own maybe one person practice that, can become two or three fairly easy. There's more technology that is, sign up with your email address, and within 10 minutes you can accept credit cards, you've got an EHR that can work, or maybe you can hire, a team for whatever, $5,000 can get you set up with all those things you need to run your business and start seeing patients. And so I think the technology is also driving people to start thinking about this as well. In your same terms, it's kind of de-risked. It's a lower risk thing to say, oh, well, yeah, I signed up with this thing, and for $1,000, I can start seeing patients independently, versus whatever, 10, 20 years ago, it was a nightmare to get started with your own practice. And I'm sure that has driven people over to the employment side more,
100%.
previously to that.
Yeah, we're going to see a mass exodus, but it's going to be this beautiful revolution of the patient-physician relationship. I heard it on NPR many, many moons ago, and now I use it all the time, which is people value what they pay for what they value. And when I first started my practice, I was scared to death. This is back in 2014, and I was charging $250 an hour, $125 an hour for a 30-minute follow-up. And I was like, who's going to give me that kind of money? That sounds...
That's too much.
It is. I'm like, this is making me nervous. And so I left my job, and at the time, the non-compete was not enforced, but I made sure not to, tick off the big guys in the room. And people found me, and they were like, hey, we want to come see you. And I was like, my fee, this is back when I was answering my own phones. I was like, hey, my fees are, this and this, $250 and $125. And they were like, okay, how do I pay you? You want a check, credit card? And I was like, y'all are just going to really give me money? What is this? This is awesome. So yeah. And since then, this was back in the days of checks, and I had to take them to the bank and scan them. And, 14 years into this, it's all so seamless now that most folks don't even blink an eye. It's the wackiest thing.
Yeah. Brian, I'm curious, maybe starting out versus today, how do you structure your practice, the fees, the hours, the staff, to make it both sustainable but also profitable for you?
Yeah, play to your strengths. So I know that I'm a morning person insofar as I like to do a lot of my business stuff in the morning. So networking, connections, that sort of thing, a lot of my admin work. And then because I'm a child psychiatrist, and most parents hate having to get their kids out of school.
Yeah.
I put a lot of my appointments between the 3 to 6 o'clock hour in the afternoons. I charge competitively. So my rates, because I'm a child psychiatrist, are more than my adult psychiatrist. And because I also infuse a lot more stuff into my appointments, because my main goal is to not medicate your kid, which means that I have to do a lot of therapy and coaching and teaching. And then I built a really great practice where each of the doctors don't really cannibalize any of the other doctors, because everybody has their shtick in their focus areas. Oh yeah, and that keeps people from getting really ticked off that, why is this person scheduled full versus mine? So that balance is really important. I pay them well, they can see things, and then I deal with any of the complaints, because at the end of the day, I don't need them distracted by someone getting irritated that our fees are high, or someone getting irritated that their wait lists are weeks. So I deal with all of that stuff, all the background administrative stuff. And so as a result, I get to work, like I said, clinical care is probably about 3 days a week. Admin is all the rest of that time. And then it also gives me time to do stuff like this, which is to ensure that everybody knows that psychiatrists aren't weirdos out to drug them up. So.
Yeah. Dr. Brian Dixon, thank you so much for being here with us today. Brian, where's the best place for people to find you, connect with you?
Yeah, lots of different places for my practice. If you just search findmindful.com, it's a Texas-based practice. So if you're listening outside of Texas, sorry for you. If you want to see me any other place, you can go to simplypsych.com. That is my practice management company, or drbriandixon.com. And that's my personal website where I talk a lot of smack, and you can totally reach out to me.
Brian, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you, Graham. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me today. For interviews with physicians creating meaningful change, check out offcall.com/podcast. You can find How I Doctor on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have new episodes weekly. This has been and continues to be Dr. Graham Walker. Stay well, stay inspired, and practice with purpose.